Undertale is a throwback to old turn-based RPGs complete with random encounters, pixel art, and a beautifully bombastic chiptune soundtrack. Relying on retro gaming aesthetics has become a tired trend, but pulling back the curtains of capitalized nostalgia reveals a game more ambitious and unique than typical would-be indie darlings. By taking those aesthetics, it builds up an expectation for what the game will be, so it can then defy and subvert those expectations from the very beginning, when a pleasant little tutorial flower just straight up lies to you about the little sparkles circling your soul. The most consistent source for Undertale's many subversions is in its take on combat. It starts off as a clever blending of classic turn-based RPGs and bullet hell shooters, oddly enough. When enemies take their turns, they all have special features tied to their character. This guy flexes and giant bulging arms rise from the bottom of the screen, while Napster Blue is sad and cries to the player's heart, but it's cool because you'll chill out and listen to music later on. As every character and enemy is different, the game's attacks and patterns keep the player on their toes throughout its entirety. The player must learn something new with nearly every encounter. The variety of Undertale's mechanics can completely alter the style of fighting and even change the genre itself. Rather than moving a little red heart around a box, maybe the game will have it stuck to the ground so the player must jump over obstacles. Or maybe the player will have to move a shield around to absorb arrows in some sort of pseudo-rhythm game. Undertale takes the basic idea of dodging bullet hell nightmares and goes wild with it. Every character has wholly unique features to understand, avoid, and manipulate, allowing them all to feel defined and richly detailed. Every aspect of Undertale is being used to evoke personality. In the middle of fighting, characters will speak their mind on any number of topics. This is done for two purposes, filling out backstory, but also so the player can know how to interact with them. Fighting isn't really the point of Undertale. It can be, but the game makes you feel like garbage for it, so why bother? No, in Undertale the player and creatures of the underground must talk it out. Instead of casting spells like Blizzaga, the player must use the powers of encouragement and jokes.
Monsters love jokes. I like jokes. Am I a monster?
What this does is creates an atmosphere of friendship permeating throughout Undertale. Even with characters who act with dire contempt at first can be reached and brought to understanding. Some are harder to reach than others, as reflected by that character's personality, but total pacifism is not only doable, but recommended. As mentioned earlier, you can kill everyone you see, so the main choice throughout the journey is to kill or not. This unfortunately puts Undertale in the same league as every other game offering overly simplistic moral choices. But if the game's so set against the violent options, then why do they exist in the game at all? Is a player who enjoys the game's combat mechanics expected to feel lesser for doing something the game lets them do? To Undertale's credit, a genocide run does have different outcomes and encounters I did not personally experience, but I feel the presence of violent options at all undermines the pacifistic message. They made the fighting fun, but they don't want you to fight. It's a bit hypocritical. Furthermore, when you give someone a choice but tell them one choice is horrible, then you're not giving them a real choice. The game is easier through Pacifism Run, which is a relative statement as the game is an unexpectedly ferocious challenge. Often it is challenging to its detriment though. The game's checkpoints aren't dispersed well enough, often forcing the player to repeat segments of puzzles or combat encounters. This unfortunately makes a game otherwise presenting fresh concepts at a breakneck pace, occasionally frustrating through repetition. Every death is met with a game over screen pleading the player to stay determined, but it's easier said than done.
The game, Undertale, makes you pick on astigmatism, which is an eye problem where I can't focus on things very well. Mine is nystagmus actually, so my eyes move back and forth, also called dancing eyes. It's not funny. Undertale.
The game is also littered with dozens of not choices where the game will present multiple options resulting in the same outcome. This is usually presented in a knowing way, that they know that you know that these choices are meaningless. Sometimes it's funny, other times it's not. Either way, it points out a prevailing issue in story-based games of the modern era and does nothing to provide a solution. At some point, games need to stop claiming player choice when there isn't. But then Undertale hits you with its mesmerizing presentation as if to make one forget its shortcomings. It's mostly successful in this endeavor. Its visuals are an odd juxtaposition. While the story's themes revolve around friendship, love, and determination, the visuals are dark and austere. This is more reflective of the game's setting, underground. In combat, it brings back pleasant memories of Phantasy Star 2, while character designs look like pixelated ink drawings, and the world itself just looks like a classic SNES-era RPG. While this visual treatment isn't a new thing by any means, Undertale just does it well. That and some bumpin' music. I mean, just listen. What cements Undertale as a great game is its writing. It's funny and full of heart. Its characters are masterful satires that hit close to home, in a pleasant way. From introverted admirers of anime to skeletons with the delusions of personal grandeur, there's bound to be someone in Undertale to relate to, if not everyone. The writing of these characters and the game's constant twisting of common video game tropes make Undertale a comical tribute to video games and the culture around them. And again, just listen.
I like it.